Speedway Report is produced and broadcast by the Zeus Radio Network for Racers Reunion Radio. There is some smart scheduling up at Laguna Seca, California. NASCAR took a hold of a Sunday evening, but it was on cable. And we will remember NASCAR Hall of Famer, eventually he'll be there, and a guy I saw a lot through the years, Mighty Mike Stefanik. We've got all this and more coming up. Welcome to Speedway Report, Monday, September the 16th, 2019, from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. I'm Patrick Reynolds, and thank you for joining the fastest half hour in racing. Little reminder to just subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just look up Speedway Report. I guess you could look up my name too on YouTube, and will take you there. But we'd love to have this stuff dropped into your mailbox each and every week. Good friend Leo down in Brazil has been watching us steadily from the Motor Week live days. He follows Speedway Report each week. We talk every week. It's good to have audience down in South America. Leo, God bless. I know you're watching the podcast on the replay. Hello. Thanks for watching. As always, you're a great audience member. You have been for years. Let's talk about the Speedway Report Victory Lane Lap. We'll tell you who won what over this past weekend, 2 weeks removed from Labor Day. Last night, NASCAR's Monster Energy Cup Series raced in Las Vegas, Nevada. Martin Truex Jr. found his way in Victory Lane. Saturday in Vegas, the Xfinity race was taken by Tyler Reddick, and on Friday, the truck race was won by Austin Hill. Laguna Seca, California hosted the IMSA Series over the weekend. Dane Cameron and Juan Pablo Montoya saw Victory Lane yesterday while co-driving an Acura. The NHRA was up in Reading, Pennsylvania for their traditional fall stop. Well, by the calendar, I guess it's not quite fall yet. It's still technically summer. But that part of the country, and the later they go in the year, in the cooler weather, both the pavement and the engines, they can really scorch up some numbers there. Winners yesterday in the finals for Top Fuel was Richie Crampton, Funny Cars, Jack Beckman, Pro Stock Jason Line, and Jerry Savoy took down the win in Pro Stock Motorcycle. The Dirt Cars closed the season in Knoxville, Iowa. The late models, I should say, the Lucas Oil Late Model Series. The Late Model Nationals on the half mile, one of the premier dirt racing facilities in the United States. Thursday night, preliminary night, was won by Shane Clanton. Friday by Ricky Weiss. And the big event on Saturday night in Knoxville was taken by Jimmy Owens. World of Outlaw sprints were California Dream, and on Friday night they raced in Stockton in a traditional stop. Logan Schuchart was your A-main winner there. And on Saturday night in Calistoga, David Gravel, Connecticut native, Knoxville Nationals winner this year, wound up in Victory Lane. ARCA cars were on the high banks of Salem, Indiana, where the grandson to Coach Joe, Ty Gibbs, won the race on a 200-lapper on Saturday night. USAC sprints were home in Indiana. Friday night in Terre Haute, Justin Grant was your winner. And Saturday in Hobstadt, that was taken by Kyle Cummins. And in Grandview, Pennsylvania, up on the hill, the small block feature, Brett Cressley in the sportsman race won by Ryan Belts. Now, let's talk about this, the week. The shows like this are always, a question mark, not a question mark to do. We're going to do it. But how do you present it? As so much of my audience has been for over the years. I come from the modified ranks of New England. They're deep in my roots. A lot of our audience members are some of the modified fans, faithful, deep-rooted modified folks. We lost one of the legends yesterday, Mike Stefanik. I guess I was like everybody else, and yesterday afternoon, you're watching social media, your phone, your electronic device, and the news starts trickling in. Well, we've seen enough of these over the years, I'll speak from my experience, where you don't just jump on it and repost it, resend it, share, spread the words, and try to be the first with information if it's not correct. I've seen many a hoax of deaths of people over the years, so I held back a little bit, and we waited, and I looked around and tried to find some confirmation as to what was happening. And as the as the afternoon wore on, the news became more clear, and it was reminded me very much of the Ted Christopher plane crash of 2 years ago, which was 2 years ago today, for that matter, in a strange twist of coincidence. But we heard rumors, and I was looking at my phone, laptop, whatnot, and you're hearing information, scattered information, not really good stuff at first, and you're thinking, no, can't be right. Well, you know what? Let's look around. Let's follow. Let's ask, like a good journalist does. And sadly, the news came to be true, where we lost Mike Stefanik in an aviation crash yesterday. And we've done a show before about Teddy Christopher. We've done shows with national tragedies. So I'm always never quite sure what kind of energy level to bring for the show. You want to be respectful, yet you don't want to just have a drab news show either. I've done these before, so you kind of wing it as you go. So much of the onstage work that I do in racing, outside of racing, at music concerts and things like that, people would be shocked if they knew how much you ad-lib and you improv, just as the feeling that you go along with and try to get a handle on it. So we're going to pay tribute to Mike tonight, remember him, talk about him, and hopefully show him the honor and respect he deserves, because he certainly commanded it in his career and how he lived. I go back a long way with Stefanik, the knowledge of him. I knew Mike, met Mike, wasn't a good friend of him. I would just say that. I never want to misrepresent myself and say something that I'm not. Not like we're tight. I do have his cell phone number in here. He's been on the show before. He's been a guest when we were Motor Week Live and having guests in. He's been on the show before. It was a great interview. My first time remembering hearing about Mike, he was driving in the limited sportsman ranks at Stafford and was a young up-and-coming guy, had a lot of potential at the time. Lord, if we only knew then what we were about to see, and the career was about to take off. And I was not on hand at the Thompson World Series, and this is the legendary story that got him his big break. I followed it, but I read about it in Speedway Scene the following week. So I'll admit that I was not part of the 300,000 people that say, yes, I was at Thompson that day for the World Series. I was not one of those. I was not there that day. I'm going to come to a Thompson story here later in my show, which I was therefore wasn't this one. But I did read about it, and excuse me, gosh, live TV, gotta love it. Probably a little bit of Mike too. But that was a big jump in his career. That day when it was the 1980 World Series, and Richie Evans had designed a new car for the 1981 season, and he let Stefanik run the car in the race. Went up, raced in the top 5 in the modifieds, and this was not a top 5 modified guy at the time. So Richie was kind of heralded as a hero of the moment, not only for what Richie had already done in the championships and the wins, but for giving this young guy a shot. And boy, did Stefanik shine in this thing. You got a guy coming from the limited sportsman ranks, had some modified experience, was not a top runner, and suddenly on Sunday afternoon, he was up in the top 5 of the World Series, you know, with Bugsy Stevens and Ronnie Bouchard and Richie and Jerry Cook and George Kent and the rest of them, and he was in the mix. And this was this massive career step for Stefanik at the time. Now, the car had mechanical difficulties. I've heard various things over the years, and that's not really important right now, but he did not finish the race. But when the car broke, he was well up into the top 5 and had a legitimate shot to win the race. Well, his career accelerated quite nicely from there. And when we lost Richie Evans in 1985, Stefanik was kind of the next group of guys to take over command of the series as far as front runners, champions, advocates for the series, representatives to the fans. Evans was pretty much on top of the game, the guy. There was a lot of good guys, but Evans was the guy. When Evans died in 1985, this opened the door to other guys. And after that, there wasn't the guy, but there was a group of guys that were elevated to champions and big runners. With Stefanik being one of them. Right up through the 90s, it was Stefanik. This was the Reggie Ruggiero era, Jimmy Spencer, the Fullers, Steve Park. It was a glorious time in modified racing. Sad that Evans was no longer with us, but that group that I've talked about before, Bodine, Evans, Kent, Troyer. Kent was still racing, but a lot of the guys either retired or moved along, and Rich's Casey passed away. But now we had a new group that was the show in modified racing. And Stefanik was a huge part of that. And I was privileged in those days. I got my driver's license in the mid-1980s. Now I could take Dad's truck or Mom's car and just zoom on up to the racetrack by myself or with my buddies, and I didn't have to rely on Mom and Dad for a ride. So I saw a lot more racing during this era, and it was a wonderful time. And I saw Stefanik's numbers are just incredible with the modifieds. The 7 modified championships and 2 titles in what's now known as the K&N Pro Series East. So Stefanik has 9 NASCAR titles total and is on the ballot for the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Surely, like everybody on the ballot, he will eventually get in. And it's just somewhat of an odd coincidence that we say goodbye to Mike Stefanik with a crash yesterday, and today was the 2-year anniversary of Teddy Christopher's plane crash, which took his life away from us. And I was thinking about Teddy yesterday as I'm sorting through some notes for the show and getting some results and thinking about what we're going to say. And the news from Mike trickled in. We lost some big cup racers back in 1983, Alan Kulwicki and Davey Allison, to aviation accidents just a few months apart. And here we have 2 modified legends, Teddy Christopher and Mike Stefanik, losing their lives in aviation accidents a couple of years apart. Teddy was still an active driver. Mike had pretty much faded from the scene and hadn't raced in quite a few years. A couple of memories of Mike. So many people remember the Daytona Battle at the Beach, where the modifieds and late models used to race on the backstretch, on the super stretch of Daytona International Speedway, where they carved out an oval coming off the second corner. And the track was not that good. It wasn't a good racetrack. However, Mike got national fame, literally national fame, when he got pushed in the back and spun out. He lost that race coming to the checkered flag in a way that he would not have wanted to win that race. And Speed TV had him live on the air. Mike said he didn't want to do the interview. They insisted to do it anyway. Mike was mad. He cursed on the air. And that clip made it all the way to the Tonight Show with Jay Leno. And Mike had a great sense of humor about it. And it was pointed out on social media today. Mike Stefanik was a class act, represented the sport well, his sponsors well, modified racing well. This was a moment of anger when you just come out of the race car. I don't blame him one bit, but for a long career, he's a classy guy, raced well, built his own stuff. Modified racing's worse off with him not here. He did move up to the Truck Series, to the Busch Series. He's running those Major League Series, but just found his way back to modified racing, probably just because of business, sponsorship, money, things like that. But he certainly had the talent to be on the national level. He didn't last there too long, but man, he was good enough to do it. He overperformed the equipment he was in both the trucks and the Busch Series, and certainly shined like a jewel in modified racing. We could go on and on about Stefanik stories all night, and one I remember, I was reminded of so many reading about them, and one I remember in particular was the 1989 World Series at Thompson, where it was this tight point battle between Stefanik and Ruggiero, and it came down to, mathematically they weren't tied, but it came down point ways, where largely it was just who finished in front of who was your champion. And there was no playoffs back then either. It was a glorious day. I remember waking up that Sunday morning at my house at my parents' thinking, boy, I'm about to see something special. I just had a hunch that this was a big deal about to unfold, and it was. Reggie got into an accident, beat up the car. He was running ahead. He came from the back. He was driving for Mario Fiore. He charged up close, and I think they got to within a position of each other. Fourth and fifth and sixth, something like that. I don't quite remember. Stefanik was in the Cazella wood chopper. Ruggiero was in the Teddy Bear Pools Fiore car, and there was a late race restart, and Reggie was right on Stefanik's bumper. And this was basically the championship, and you watch the two of them duke it out. I can't even remember who won the race. Do you believe that day? I don't recall who won the race. 1989 World Series. Please look it up. I don't remember. But that was something else. It was something special. Stefanik finished ahead of Reggie that day, won the championship. Reggie never wound up winning a modified title. He was good enough and one of the greats of the sport, but unfortunately he did not. That was a day Mike won. Mike did not win the race, but he won the war. I remember Mike on his roof at Oswego a year earlier or something like that. But, yeah, we could go on and on about Stefanik stories, the wins, and certainly what one of the greatest accomplishments to me in all of NASCAR was his wins in the modified and the K&N Pro Series in the same year when he won the championship in both series for 2 years in a row. So 2 years, and he was the champion of four. You got 4 championships within a 2-year period as he won the titles for both series 2 consecutive years. Herculean, monumental task. He is the kind of stuff NASCAR legends are made of, Mike Stefanik. Rest in peace, Mike. You gave us so many memories. It was fun to watch your race. It was fun to talk to you on air here. It was great to meet you and chat with you over the years, and modified racing as a whole, NASCAR, is better because someone like Mike Stefanik was in it. God bless, Godspeed. It was always great to watch you race. Let's touch on a few other headlines and items that happened over the weekend here. Quick NHRA up in Reading, Pennsylvania. I gave you the ladder winners for yesterday. Quick time. Erica Enders, Brittany Force, Angel Sampi. We had 3 fast timers, all females, in the NHRA. We came close. I think it was Epping or New Hampshire there last year before, where we almost had all females winning on Sunday, winning the ladder, but it didn't come to be. But here we are in Reading, Pennsylvania. We had 3 fast timers, all female. Pretty cool. And as much as I complain about scheduling, timing, who did what, and why don't you guys get your head together, let's give credit where credit is due. Laguna Seca, California, WeatherTech Raceway has a dynamite little speed week going, as we just had the IMSA race there last Sunday, and they've got the Indy cars this coming weekend. How many people are just there in campers? What a great speed week in the fall for Laguna Seca, historic road course in Monterey in the California wine country. They got the IMSA Sports Car Championship and the IndyCar. In the IndyCar, that's the title race coming up this Sunday at Laguna Seca, which I think that's great. The history for IndyCar racing tells me, gosh, I wish we were settling this on an oval just for historic reference. But Laguna Seca's got a lot of history to it as well. I'm okay with it. I'd prefer it was on an oval, but with that IMSA IndyCar a week apart, nice little speed week there, I think that's pretty cool. I want to give credit to NASCAR, too. There's so much stuff that's wrong with the sport. Again, let's point out what's good. I dug the late start time at Las Vegas, where they threw the green flag about 7:15 Sunday night. I'm not a football guy, so I don't really care about that, but I really like having your Sunday free. And, you know, NASCAR sometimes rules that in the summertime, but having a Sunday night NASCAR race I thought was pretty neat. Now, in the mid-2000s, NASCAR was putting up some national TV numbers on network. I remember they had a few rain delays that pushed their green flag start to 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which brought that checker to 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And they did really, really well for the networks. Now, this was cable TV, but I still thought it was pretty cool that they did that going up against the National Football League. That's important to me. Is the NASCAR aspect of it, not the NFL. Now, still within the race, there's predictions for the Final Four. Who's going to be the Final Four Miami? I don't care. Just the playoff whole feel of it doesn't float with me. week after week I beat this dead horse, but I thought at least the race with a late green flag, it was pretty cool. Do want to say hello to Joyce Smith. That is Jerry Smith's mom. Jerry Smith hosts Stars Radio Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. He and I were partners at Racers Reunion for a long time. Stars, your short track auto racing source. Go to Jerry Smith's home Facebook page each Wednesday evening, and he hosts Stars Radio. His mom was in the hospital. She looks to be doing well. If you got some spare prayers out there for her recovery, for Joyce Smith, we're thinking of you, Jerry's mom, and hope you are doing well. Before we leave here today, we want to talk about the Racer of the Week and give our hat tip to Motor Week Illustrated. I thought of, gosh, each week there's so many people, how they raced, what they did, what they accomplished. One of the big events, tough to win, crown jewel event, I'm going to give this week's Racer of the Week. It was a tough decision, but I'll go with the Nightmare, Jimmy Owens. He won the dirt late model big race at Knoxville, Iowa on Saturday night. Again, another guest on this show before. We've talked to him on air. That was a big race, big win. Good for you, Jimmy, the Nightmare, Jimmy Owens out of Newport, Tennessee, taking the dirt late model race at Knoxville, Iowa. So congrats to him, and hopefully Dave Despain is listening and digging what I'm doing with this thing. Everybody, in between our broadcasts, keep up on the world of auto racing with SpeedwayReport.com. We've got podcasts there. We've got articles to read, so head to the website, SpeedwayReport.com. Catch up to me on social media, where you might say lots of places. I'll give you the Facebook rundown. It's Racers Reunion. It is Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds, and it's my personal Facebook page. On Twitter, I'm at Speedway Report and at Speedway Pat. At Instagram, it's Speedway Pat. I don't know what's up with the frogs tonight. Almost made it to the end of the show before another drink. And you can catch up racersreunion.com in the forum. I still post all these shows on Racers Reunion. That's where we were born. That's where we grew up. I'm still investing in the website. And also, like I said at the top of the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just look up Speedway Report, and there we are. Big thanks to everyone on the Facebook Live feed for joining the conversation during the show tonight. As the season winds down, it is autumn. Please go to a local track, see a race near you. Won't be long before the winter has taken hold and we'll be complaining there's no racing to go to. And I want to thank all of the military past and present for the freedoms we enjoy as Americans in our daily life, including the simple things like bench racing right here on a Monday night. Freedom is not free, and a veteran paid that bill for us. To all of the men and women who are defending freedom and watching Speedway Report, take care of yourselves and come home soon. A special salute to the teachers, school staff, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics in our own communities. They are quiet and modest heroes every single day. God bless and thank you. You have been watching Speedway Report from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. Please like our Facebook page, Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds, and follow me on Twitter at Speedway Pat. Now, if you head right now to the Drag Racing List page on Facebook, Drag List Live is next. Bill, John, and Barb will talk some drag racing for the next little bit. Now, I'll be back here live on Facebook next week, Monday, September the 23rd. We will look at the Lucas Oil Late Models in Indiana, the Freedom 76 at Grandview, Pennsylvania, NASCAR Modifieds on the Magic Mile, the IndyCar Championship from Laguna Seca, and a whole bunch of short track racing. Thank you for watching. Peace and prayers go out to Julie Stefanik and the entire family. Mighty Mike, Godspeed, and thanks for the memories. I'll see you all next week.